The first thing Officer Daniel Reyes noticed was not the noise, but the silence. In a crowded roadside diner just outside a dusty highway town, silence should have been impossible. Plates clinked, waitresses called orders, truck engines rumbled outside. But at table 7, a little girl sat unnaturally still, her wide eyes fixed on nothing, her small hands clenched into fists beneath the table. And beside Daniel, his K9 partner Rex had frozen mid-step, ears alert, body tense, gaze locked on that same child. Daniel had learned long ago to trust Rex more than his own instincts. "Easy, boy," Daniel murmured. But Rex didn't move. That's when the girl did something almost invisible. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She just lifted her hand slightly and tapped her fingers twice against the edge of the table. Tap, tap. It was subtle, silent, but deliberate. Rex's body stiffened further, and in that moment, everything changed. Her name was Lily, 7 years old, blonde hair tied loosely with a fading ribbon. A strawberry milkshake sat untouched in front of her, condensation pooling beneath the glass. Across from her sat a man in his late 30s, unkempt beard, restless eyes, a forced smile that never reached them. To anyone else, they looked like father and daughter. To Rex, something was wrong. Daniel stepped closer, casual but observant. Years on the force had trained him to read people, but Rex had an uncanny way of sensing what couldn't be seen. "Afternoon," Daniel said lightly, approaching the table. The man looked up quickly, too quickly. "Afternoon," he replied, his tone guarded. "Everything all right here?" "Perfect," the man said, placing a firm hand on Lily's shoulder. "Just having lunch with my daughter." Lily didn't react to the touch, didn't smile, didn't even blink. But her fingers tapped again. Tap, tap. Daniel's eyes flicked to Rex. The dog let out the faintest growl. That was all Daniel needed. "Mind if I ask her a quick question?" Daniel said, his voice calm. The man hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. "She's shy," he said, "doesn't talk much." "That's okay," Daniel replied gently. He crouched down to Lily's level. "Hey there, what's your name?" Lily's eyes shifted slowly to him, and for the first time there was something in them, fear, deep suffocating fear. She didn't speak, but her fingers tapped again. Tap, tap. Rex moved forward suddenly, placing himself between Lily and the man, not aggressively but protectively. The man's chair scraped loudly as he stood. "Hey, control your dog!" Daniel stood as well, his posture firm now. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step back. This is ridiculous. Step back." The tone had changed, and everyone in the diner felt it. The man raised his hands defensively, but his eyes darted toward the exit. "Bad move." Rex barked sharply. The entire diner fell silent. And in that silence, Lily finally moved. Not away from Daniel, not toward the man, but toward Rex. She slid off her chair and wrapped her tiny arms around the dog's neck. That was when she whispered, so softly only Daniel could hear, "He's not my dad." Time seemed to fracture. Daniel's heart pounded as training took over. "Dispatch, I need backup," he said into his radio. "Possible child abduction." The man bolted. Chairs toppled. People shouted. But Rex was faster. With a powerful leap, the dog intercepted him before he reached the door, knocking him to the ground with precision. Not vicious, controlled, enough to stop him. Daniel moved in, securing the suspect within seconds, and all the while, Lily stood frozen, clutching the edge of the table, alone, until Rex returned. When the adrenaline faded, the truth came in fragments. Lily had been missing for 2 days. 2 days of nationwide alerts, 2 days of frantic searching. 2 days of a mother who hadn't slept. The man wasn't her father. He was a stranger who had taken her from a park while her mother answered a phone call. No one had seen it happen. No one except Lily. And Lily had remembered something small, something most people would overlook. A lesson from a school visit months ago. A police officer had come with a K9 unit, demonstrating how dogs could respond to signals, how they could sense danger, how they could protect. He had told the children, "If you ever feel unsafe and can't speak, find a way to signal. We're trained to notice." Lily had remembered. Tap, tap. At the station later that evening, Lily sat wrapped in a blanket, Rex lying beside her, his head resting gently on her lap. Daniel watched from a distance, his chest heavy with something he couldn't quite name. Relief, gratitude, awe. The door opened, and a woman rushed in. "Lily," The sound broke everything. Lily looked up, and for the first time she ran. "Mama!" They collided in an embrace so powerful it seemed to pull the air from the room. Tears, laughter, disbelief, it all poured out at once. "I'm so sorry," her mother sobbed. "I'm so sorry." Lily shook her head. "It's okay." Her voice was small, but steady. "I knew someone would help." Later, as the station quieted and the paperwork piled up, Daniel sat beside Rex, gently scratching behind his ears. "You saw it, didn't you?" he murmured. Rex wagged his tail once. Daniel smiled faintly. It wasn't just training. It wasn't just instinct. It was something deeper, a connection, a trust that went beyond words. Weeks passed. The story spread. News outlets called it a miracle, a brave little girl, a heroic police dog. But those who were there knew the truth was even more powerful. It wasn't just about rescue. It was about awareness, about noticing the quiet signals, about choosing to act. One afternoon, Daniel received a letter. It was written in uneven handwriting, the words slightly crooked but full of heart. "Dear Officer Daniel and Rex, thank you for saving me. I was very scared, but I remembered what the policeman said. I knew you would understand. Rex is my hero. I hope I can be brave like him one day. Love, Lily." Daniel read it twice. Then he folded it carefully and placed it in his pocket. "Looks like you've got a fan," he said to Rex. The dog wagged his tail. Months later, Daniel was invited to speak at a school. As he stood before a room full of children, he told them a story, not about danger, but about courage, about a little girl who didn't shout, who didn't panic, who simply trusted that someone would listen, and about a dog who did. He paused, scanning the room. "If you ever feel unsafe," he said gently, "remember, you don't always have to be loud to be heard. Sometimes the smallest signal can change everything." In the front row, a little girl raised her hand. "What kind of signal?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "Any signal that says, I need help." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Daniel and Rex walked along the quiet streets. The world felt different now, not safer, but more connected, more aware. Because somewhere, a child had learned that even in silence their voice mattered. And somewhere else, someone had learned to listen. And that is where the real miracle lived. Not in the chase, not in the headlines, but in the quiet understanding between a frightened child and a watchful dog, in the courage to act, in the willingness to notice, in the simple, powerful truth that kindness doesn't always roar. Sometimes it listens, and when it does, it can save a life. Because on that ordinary afternoon in a noisy diner, a little girl made a silent signal, and someone chose to see it, and that choice made all the difference.